Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. All right, Uris Hall.
Yep.
Studying and professing.
Sort of in between. I'm
A little both, huh?
research fellow.
Nice, very nice. What are we researching lately?
What's that?
What are we researching?
I'm a historian.
Say again?
I'm a historian.
Historian?
Yeah.
Very interesting. What do you think of Napoleon's famous comments on history?
Napoleon said a lot of things, just like Winston Churchill, you know.
Yeah, but what about the value just of the statement itself?
Which statement?
Oh, well, the history is just an agreed upon set of lies.
Oh,
We can agree there's some truth to it.
well, you know, it's a little similar to the history written by the victors kind of thing.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. The losers never get to sit down and write the book.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely.
Yeah. There's counter narratives. You know.
Sure.
Those who live in a state of defeat. You know, and then they like come up with this whole other view of things.
How about the propaganda and disinformation and misinformation
Yeah. Well,
that's
there's
put out to control populations' thoughts on certain matters that have no bearing on reality?
True.
Foreign policy issues and such.
Right. There's official narratives and
Right.
and there's this seeking of the truth, but there is no real truth. You know, so it's created by community.
You don't think there's a just pure natural truth, raw
You
truth?
can create a truth with an individual. It doesn't really have anybody to compare things.
Sure. It's subjective
Right.
only.
So you
There's
could
no
decide that something
objectivity.
that was untrue was true, but no one would ever give you any kind of
Podium or-
pushback on it, right?
Sure.
So there's it's this conflict between empiricism and what you can perceive, what you
Sure.
can see, and evidence.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court, my man.
Right.
Sure.
But
there is incontrovertible evidence. I mean, that does exist in some facets, in some forums.
Sure.
DNA, video.
Right. No, I believe in empirical evidence. I think that
100%.
But the fact is that it's a relatively new phenomena. The idea of like thinking of things as being perceivable rather than whatever the authority told you. So
Sure,
an example
sure.
of that I use when I teach about it is in the 13th century you have this he's originally a monk, but then he's basically a scientist called Roger Bacon. Says you'll see this Baconian science. He says, look, we have all of these truths and these realities that the church tells us are true. So one of those was that small animals and like mice and insects and things, that they actually emerged out of like wherever they lived. So like a frog would come out of like a pond. It's like they're spontaneous generation.
Sure, right.
And so mice were it was supposed to be they were vermin, so they came from like bags of grain, like they were like little tiny mice, like grew out of the grain.
Sure.
So he actually was like, look, I have examined this, and you can find little baby mice living with the mice, and they're growing up, and they're just like us,
the adult, right?
Having a baby that grows up. This was considered insane, like it was almost heretical, but it's just observation.
Right.
Anybody can perceive it, and that's what's so liberating about it, is that anybody can perceive it, but the church obviously pushes back, right?
Sure.
So that's a good example of like, empiricism is a real. You can prove these things. There's mice do not. It's not. There's no controversy.
Right. Right.
And if somebody says, well, some people say mice come somewhere. No, that they're wrong. So that's an example, obviously.
That exists. It's fully alive and well today.
Yeah. What do you think? What's an example of that today?
Well, not so much down the history vein, but with your observable perceivables. I mean, the scientific method alone is observe, test, repeat. We have an object in the sky, the moon. It's the most photographed and observed object known to man. Yet, if you look around, almost nobody knows nothing about it, and it's chock full of anomalies that have been being studied and unexplained for hundreds and dozens of centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And most people's understanding is cartoon at best.
Mm-hmm. So we think we know about it, but we really don't.
Well, some of us think we know about it. Most of us know nothing about it, and some of us have a cartoon knowledge at best and don't even realize it.
What kind of theories do you that have been proposed by those who know about it, about them, not about what things we don't know and what's significant about it?
Here's the significance. Landing on the moon and successfully taking back off from the moon is the only feat that I can think of that's never been replicated technologically.
Well, except by, it's been done remotely.
We've never been back to the moon. Nobody has.
The Soviets put
no Soviet has ever stepped on a moon.
No, they haven't, not a person, but they put they put a rope.
Stepping onto the moon and taking back off is a technological feat that's never been replicated, and that's a giant anomaly. No other feat known to man has been done and then just never done again. And that's not been done just like last week. This was done with technology that's a millionth of the power of the technology we have today. And NASA currently says we don't have the ability to go to the moon. That's accepted science.
Well, one thing that has always, struck me about that is the raising of the standards of what's considered safe. So they
did it perfectly every time. The first time. Every time, they never once failed.
Well, they did their calculations with slide rules. It was pretty raw calculations.
The actual person who figured it all out, his name was Verner Von Braun.
Yeah,
he was the original head of NASA.
Nazi.
He was a Nazi, yes. That's a separate issue, though. He was not just like a Nazi. He was one of the upper echelon of the SS.
No, he wasn't one of the upper echelon.
He ran Poonaminda.
He was the head of the rocket.
He was head of the rocket division. He was also a head of the upper echelon in the SS. Look it up.
Well, he was I believe promoted to a kind of. He had to be promoted based on experience too.
He was in charge of a lot of people.
Yeah, he was in
not
charge
just
of
the
a
rocket
lot of
program,
people, but his rank was quite low. So, but that's true because, like, for example, Adolf Eichmann, he was the architect of.
His rank was so high that in Operation Paperclip, do you know where he ranked in the Kidnap 'Em series?
Well, no, he'd be very high because he was because
of the knowledge he had.
Eichmann is similar.
Sure.
Eichmann was.
We never did get him, did we?
No, well, he was the Israelis.
Right, they say they killed him. Yep,
well,
but they never did show proof. Mossad never showed proof.
Well, Mossad abducted him from Argentina.
They say they did. They never proved it.
Well, he was in.
Back to that observe and test repeat.
Well, you'd have to.
They say they kidnapped him with a 3-man team out of Argentina. There's some discrepancies there. They never showed any evidence of it.
Well, this is also what people say about Mengele. They said that Mengele, he was still considered alive until he would have been like 120. This kind of thing.
We do have DNA evidence of Hitler's continued existence in Argentina.
Well, we do. Mengele was an interesting case because he only came on the radar because he had to have a surgery because he kept eating his hair, and he had an enormous hair
nervous condition,
something like that. Some kind of anxiety or something. He would eat his hair. But there's actually a really good movie about this that obviously it's not a documentary, fictionalized, but it's about imagining. He apparently did all these like tests on Argentine children.
I've heard this.
Nothing that was
genetic stuff.
Yeah, and like measuring phrenology.
Sure.
And there's an Argentine movie that's really good about a little girl who he is being he's using her as like a test case of like the white race, that's in South America.
Yeah.
Argentina is mostly Italian.
Yeah,
It's not
that Spanish look that you'd expect a lot of times.
Yeah, it's a different kind of place. Yeah. So that's why a lot of the Nazis went there. Because it was considered a white place.
Most of America has no idea what Operation Paperclip did to the United States scientific body, or what NASA in general.
There were a lot of, the
CIA took half of them.
Yeah, the Soviets got some in that.
Yes.
But most of them were snapped up by the British and the Americans. A lot of British actually.
Well, it was a race too. We all wanted all of them.
Yeah.
The Russians and the British and Americans were in a fight to get them all. But most Americans have no idea that really the group of them went to two places. They became what is now NASA, and they started what is now CIA.
Well, the OSS already existed.
Of course. But their tactics changed upon the entrance of these nationals.
Well, and also the German army, the Bundestag, was rebuilt mostly by a lot of them weren't Nazi Party members, but because if they were high-ranking enough, they would have had to take. They had to take a certain kind of oath, definitely.
Sure.
They had to take like a kind of like a bribe from Hitler. Hitler would give them like a personal bribe, and it kind of made them complicit, even if they were like anti-Hitler.
Right.
So there were some of them were like anti-Hitler, but most of them weren't. They just experts who survived the war, and they became our you know, you look at the material of the German army, the rank structure, it's all the same. You know, it's like they didn't actually change much.
No.
Thank God, you know, they're part of NATO, so they don't they can't do anything without anybody else's go-ahead. But that was the big fear, was that they were just going to start another war.
Have you ever by chance read Admiral Byrd's book, where he talks all the craziness about Antarctica?
No, I don't.
Yeah, he wrote a personal memoir. It's super interesting. I think it's fictional, but he puts it off as non-fictional. Interesting guy, youngest admiral in the whole Navy, did it all by age of 26.
Okay.
He's the guy they sent down to map out Antarctica. Come back in a few weeks, said I need way more men and I need way more equipment and ships. And he went back down, and he came back and went on TV and said, okay, it's interesting down there. And they said, well, how interesting? He said, beyond interesting. It's full of natural resources: coal, diamond, oil, gold. And I shouldn't say this next one because everybody's going to run down and fight for it, but it's full of mountains full of uranium. And beyond the polar ice caps is an expanse of land larger than all of North America that's been completely undiscovered by all of man, and it lies in a tropical paradise, he says. Now, what is beyond the polar ice cap? If you go off the water onto the polar ice cap and you go beyond it, you're back in water.
Right.
And then where's this expanse larger than all of North America? And mountains? You see, the Antarctic Treaty is the only treaty in all of recorded history that's been signed by so many nations and not broken. And when we've never once explored, what's the only known animal living there?
Well, there's penguins, but there's, you know, there's also, you know, seals live on the
and we kill those things left and right. America doesn't care about animals like that. They like to think they do, they don't. So what are we protecting, really? And why have we never broken it? What is he talking about? This tropical paradise.
It's sort of broken, but the Chileans kind of break it all the time, because the Chileans control a huge portion of it.
The treaty itself says nobody actually can claim any rights to the land. Nobody can.
Like there are these like pizza slices.
Yeah, but nobody actually gets any ownership. Well, although America owns it.
Yeah, sure.
Why was John Kerry there on Election Day?
I don't even know.
Why do so many politicians go there on such important days?
Well, I think you should look into the Chileans. The Chileans are interesting because they are constantly getting in like kind of mild hot water over it. Because
I'm more interested in Buzz Aldrin and the things he came back and said when his meds started wearing off.
Buzz Aldrin is a weird guy.
He is, but he's also taking security oaths, and he knows things that he's not supposed to talk about, and his brain is slipping, and now he's letting stuff slide.
Yeah, well, Buzz Aldrin's kind of a... I've always thought he did like a celebrity boxing
He's a weirdo.
contest.
Yeah, he's a strange. He's probably got a drink problem.
He was one of the best educated of all the astronauts. You know, he got a PhD. And
why did Armstrong never give a single interview in all his recorded time after he got back from the moon?
Strange. He was I think he was probably had Asperger's.
Why did Collins, Aldrin, and Armstrong look so despondent in that news conference when they had to answer questions? And why did they say we saw no stars the whole time?
Nobody liked Buzz Aldrin. That was part of the thing. They actually almost got in a fist fight. You know, at one point, you know,
he punched Bart Sobrell over that documentary.
There's something wrong with him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. It was awesome chatting with you, babe.
Good to talk.
Leslie, have a good one.
Yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. How'd I do with a Cornell historian? Interesting guy. So, I get a kick out of having these conversations. I think he could tell that I done my homework, know what I'm talking about a little bit, and he knows what he's talking about. I think he believes the initial official narrative a bit more than I do. I used to believe everything he probably thinks, but you know, sometimes you start to wonder if there's more to a story. You know, if little cracks start to develop, you start noticing things that don't really make sense, and your brain starts to wonder, well, what the heck, fire? This can't be real. This can't be true if this is also true. And then you start digging deeper into stories, and sometimes official narratives fall apart, and you realize you just got sold a cover story. That is what it is. As long as we got degree programs here for y'all to pay money on, the world's good. We're good. So, all right, enough of my bullshit. I'm going to drive some more, pick me up some more big brains, and shoot the shit with them. right, let's see. College Town Bagels.
Yes.
All right. You're welcome. Little train they got going on there. Little train station and an old train.
Oh yeah, well.
Is that a little museum or something?
It's a bank, funny enough.
Bank?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, I guess, they kind of
Shenango
maintain it,
Canal
make it look kind of
Trust.
fun.
Yep. Yeah, because everybody trusts bankers. It's funny they always call it a trust.
Right.
So what do you do?
I teach at Cornell.
Nice. What do you teach?
It's called operations research.
Operations research.
Yeah, it's like mathematical part of engineering.
Okay. Not as in the order of operations. PEMDAS?
But I mean, half of our faculty, well, not really half, but a whole bunch of them consult actually for Uber.
How do you mean?
So like how to set prices, how to pick the drivers, how to route the pickup rides, right? All of this is actually part of kind of mathematical models that we do.
Sure.
I don't particularly like that part because it's obviously all about
I have
raising the income, not like particularly.
I have a conspiracy theory you might like then.
Yeah.
It involves Uber.
Uh-huh.
You want to hear this?
Okay.
So my conspiracy theory is Uber is not a transportation company.
Uh-huh.
What do you think of that on its surface before I go any deeper?
No, I mean, it's not a transportation company. What do you mean? The drivers are the transportation. They're just...
Well, beyond that, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm a transportation company.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know that, even in theory, Uber bills itself as a payment processor.
Yes, right, exactly.
But they're not in the transportation business, payment processing business. That's not their business.
Okay. So what's their business?
That's just what they say and what everybody likes to think the business is, because it sounds good and it feels good.
Right.
And it's obvious,
Yeah.
so it must be. What if I were to tell you that Uber's... Well, let me ask you this. How many years has Uber turned a profit so far?
I'm not even sure it has. Yeah, exactly.
They've never turned a profit yet,
Yeah,
right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And how do payment processing companies not turn a profit?
Right, yeah. Well, they're investing a ton, though.
Well, how many billions and billions and billions do you got to spend to process a payment?
No,
Don't we all do it with our phones for free?
The processing a payment, that's setting the payment, right? I mean,
Well, the payments set themselves. The open market does that.
Unfortunately, that's not
It's been the same price forever. It's been 15-year model. Nothing's changing. It's $5. It's $5 to $8 to get in the car. It's so much per mile. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's fluctuations, but even still, you're telling me all these smart people come together and can't figure out how to get a payment processing company to make money after year, billions and billions, zero.
Right.
And then when do we have a company that comes out with a genius model like Uber, right?
Yeah.
And venture capitalists see it losing money hand over fist every quarter, and they can't throw billions at it fast enough. Does that ever make sense to you? You ever seen that before? Because that's what's happening with Uber.
Yes, but this is the...
What if I were to tell you Uber is in the information business?
Yes, probably. Of course, like everybody else, like Google. Like
Of
whatever.
course.
Yeah, they're keeping
That's
your
the
data.
part they don't want to talk. Here we go. It's all about the data.
Sure, yeah.
And it's not about the data of, they have all of our comings and goings. They have all of our contacts. They know where we're going and how long we're staying there. And that could be of use to an intelligence service and a government.
Or simply somebody commercial.
Or everybody commercial.
I mean, we don't know.
And the intelligence services.
Yeah, you're right. These days, we just know that information is valuable. We don't know
Very valuable.
who and when is going to pay for it, but precisely.
Well, we know that it's valuable to everybody. It's just a matter of how much will they pay for it.
Yes.
And how many will buy the same information twice.
Right. Yeah.
And then what is exclusive?
Right.
And then what is volunteered, which is pretty much everything these days now. Aren't we just giving it all away for free, most of us?
Right.
Huh. So yeah, I don't think Uber's really a transportation business. I think they're an information gathering business, not so unlike AT&T or Google or anybody else.
Yes.
And this is why
Yeah, they
Venture capitalists know this is a good investment. They're going somewhere.
right.
Even though on the surface they seem to be losing money. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But they are. I mean, they're already utilizing this information precisely. I mean, I was told that. So if you, for example, enter an address of an expensive restaurant,
Yes.
the Uber price that I would pay as a rider, yeah, will go up. I mean, as a driver, you wouldn't get anything new.
No, I don't notice a difference.
Right, but they would charge me more because they assume that, you know.
That would never happen if I picked you up from a different zip code and we were going to McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I mean, this is kind of outrageous, but yes,
Well,
okay, it's also free market. Yes.
It's an offer. I offer to do this for you for this. Will you accept or not?
Right.
It's just a business decision on both ends.
Yeah. No, except for people started relying on it.
You ever see the movie Paper Moon?
Yeah.
Where they would Bible salesman, and depending on what inside of your house looked like on the outside, was depending on the price you pay.
Sure.
We do that. All businesses do this to a degree.
Sense, yes. Right.
Yep. I mean, Uber is more expensive in this area than it is in Kansas.
Yes.
And it's cheaper than New York City.
Right.
But I see what you're saying. There's some more trickery going on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's it's but anyway, but that's what people are, and you may be right. Already, they're probably trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, back to that. That's precisely the type of things we do, except for we do it from just a theoretical mathematical perspective. Like if you have information and you wanna try to extract something out of it,
Sure.
what kind of algorithm to use?
As a shareholder, if you have two options, an award for ethics
Yeah.
or a dividend, what are you taking?
Say it again.
If as a shareholder of a publicly traded company, you get two options at the end of the year. You can get a dividend for $5,000, or you can get an award for we're the most ethical company out there.
I see.
What, as a shareholder, what do you want?
Yeah.
You want the $5,000. That's why you invested. You're a shareholder.
It depends. I don't know. Not sure, actually. But yes, if I'm investing to make money, yes. If I'm investing not to lose it, which is.
If a congressman gets a phone call, but he's only got a time to take one phone call, and he gets two phone calls, one from a constituent, one from a donor.
Right. Yes.
Who's he talk to?
I understand. Yeah, that's true.
Free market. Yep.
Yes.
Right here. Good for you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doctor, it was awesome talking with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have a good day.
You too. Thank you. There you go. You heard it yourself first. Good doctor thinks that Uber might not be in the transportation business. We might be in the information business.